Hello and welcome back to the Sports Brief Podcast. Welcome back to it, episode 30. Now, starting at now, first thing we got to do, turn it over to co-host. How's it going, dude?
It's going good. Good to be back.
Absolutely. Episode 30, a lot of big things to happen tonight. We're going to preview the Super Bowl a little bit, talk about the Vikings, and now getting Gary Kubiak as their new offensive coordinator. And a lot of other stuff, but the first thing we're going to ask you guys to do is subscribe for the most recent news and events in sports, which are all brought to you by the Sports Brief Podcast, as Tristan has to bring up his Lambeau Field mug. Anywho, once again, be sure to leave us a comment as well as a like, all of which after you subscribe, comment on how great my hair looks tonight or how much I need to improve it or get a haircut, whatever we need to comment on. Now let's get straight into the Super Bowl. Can we at least both agree that we're both happy that the Patriots aren't going to be in this thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been hoping for the last 5 or so years that one of these years they would just fall off, but it hasn't been happening, and I'm just so thankful that they didn't make it past a one playoff game this year. So it's a good change.
Yes. Absolutely, and I think it's not necessarily the Super Bowl everybody wanted, but on the same level it is because the Patriots aren't going to be in it. So let's jump right into this. Chiefs and 49ers. The first thing I actually want to do, usually podcasts go off, they give you a score prediction at the end of the show. Well, I'm going to do the exact opposite of that. We're going to start out the show with score predictions. I'm going to start with Tristan. Who will win this game and what will the score be?
Let's see. I picked the 49ers to win this Super Bowl 34-31.
Really?
Yes, it wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs win, but I just think, the run game is so huge for the 49ers. They got 3 really good backs that can really do it. I mean, we saw what Mozart did. I don't know how you say it. I think it's Mozart, whatever, however you pronounce it, what he did to the Packers in the NFC Championship game. I mean, dude had, I don't know, he had 200 and something yards, and like 110 or 115 of his yards were before contact. Mm-hmm. So, jeez. I mean, I'm not saying Kansas City's defense isn't going to touch him like Green Bay's defense, but I think it kind of just brought some light to how good he is. He's fast, he's shifty, he's really good. That 49ers offensive front, really good. I think the play action passing for the 49ers, if they can get that run game going with their running backs, is going to be lethal. Mm-hmm. They must control the line of scrimmage, which I think they will very easily do, offense and defense. Obviously, they got probably a top 1 or 2 defensive lines in the NFL. So, yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think the 49ers are more disciplined than the Kansas City Chiefs. The Niners only had 2 penalties for a combined 15 yards against the Packers in the NFC Championship game, and Kansas City had 9 penalties against the Titans. So I definitely think the Niners are a more disciplined team, a more physical team, and I think it's going to show come the Super Bowl. I think the 49ers, it's pretty obvious, they're a lot more balanced than the Kansas City Chiefs are. I mean, they've got a power running game. I'm not super sold on Jimmy G, but I'm sold enough to say they can throw the ball when they need to. Mm-hmm. But they will dominate the line of scrimmage. They'll be more disciplined, and I just don't see any way that Kansas City's defense is going to be able to shut down the 49ers offense per se. So I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I do think each team will get over 30, but I think the 49ers will win a close one.
Okay. I actually, before I go into my little spiel here and my Super Bowl score prediction, I want to give you a chance to mourn the loss of the Packers. I know what it was like. We texted, and I said, man, great season, and I feel the pain. And you texted back and you said, but yes, but it's different when you lose with a quarterback like Rodgers, and that's you hit the nail on the head. I didn't have a response. I was like, that's true, because the man was coming back, and you know what? At the end of the day, there should be nothing but pride from the Packers because everybody hated on the Packers, and myself included. And I think they really turned some heads this year. They rightfully so earned some respect, and at the end of the day, they were. Honestly, I think, in my opinion, at least a half away from going to the Super Bowl. That first half, if they could have mustered something, I think they would be in the Super Bowl right now. But I'm going to give you your time to mourn because you deserve it. And you lost in a high stakes game. So, give me your reaction to the Packers game as you was going through, and just everything that you want to get off your chest.
Yeah, I agree with you. If they would have showed up in the first half, then we very well could be talking about a Packers and Chiefs Super Bowl, which is what I thought was going to happen. The Packers played the 49ers earlier this year in week 12, 11 or 12, I think. And that game, exact same result as this game almost. It was a little worse. I think it was 37-7 or 38-7 or 37-8, something like that. But it was an exact replay of what happened, the first half at least, of what happened week 12. And after week 12, Aaron Rodgers even said, when the dude says stuff, it happens. And he said, if we see the 49ers again, we'll be ready for them. So I had faith that they made the proper adjustments. They were going to show up to play, but they didn't show up to play. They didn't show up to play until the second half. And, like you said, it hurts to lose with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, because I know as a Vikings fan, you guys get let down a lot, but you don't really – you don't really quite have the expectation like this guy can take it to the Super Bowl every year. And when you have a quarterback like Rodgers who's won a Super Bowl, who the expectation for him is to win a Super Bowl every year almost because of how good he is, and they keep losing in NFC Championship games, getting so close, it's just like, I don't know. The window is closing, and it's not going to be open much longer. I think Aaron Rodgers can play at a high level for another 2 or 3 years probably. And after that, he's going to be pretty stationary, like Brady was the last 5 years he's been. He's always been stationary, honestly. But it's just going to be a lot more difficult to win when Aaron Rodgers isn't playing at that level that he's used to playing at, when he's not as mobile. So they need to make big moves this offseason. First off, they need to get rid of Blake Martinez, which is bold. He's a very good tackler. He's usually in the top 3 tacklers in the NFL, but the dude is slower than hell. He can't get to a gap before the running back's already through it. He can't cover a tight end to save his life. He had so many missed tackles in the NFC Championship game that ended up being explosive touchdown runs, and it's just ridiculous. We need to get somebody who's fast, who can at least tackle half as good as Blake Martinez, because we just need a linebacker that's fast and that can fill the gap and that can cover a tight end, because that's been our biggest weakness. So I do think Green Bay needs to move on from Blake Martinez like they moved on from Clay Matthews. We need to draft linebacker. I don't think we really need to draft defensive line. We need to draft a wide receiver. Need to get rid of Jimmy Graham. He's overpaid. We have good tight ends. We have Jay Sternberger, who we picked up in like the 4th or 5th round of the draft. They've only thrown the ball to him 2 times this year, I think, and both times were in the NFC Championship game, and one of them was a touchdown. So it's like they've had a tight end faster than Graham all year, and they haven't used him. So it doesn't make sense to me. I put a lot of blame, as bad as it sounds, on Matt LaFleur. He did a heck of a job for his first year being an NFL head coach. 13-3 or 14-3 rather, including the playoff win against Seattle, and then going to the NFC Championship game in your first year is definitely not easy, but it's probably a lot easier having Aaron Rodgers and a good pass rush. But the one thing I disliked about Matt LaFleur this year was he wasn't fiery. He wouldn't yell at anybody. He doesn't really get anybody jacked up, and he just says the same thing over and over again. Nice job, guys. Nobody blinked, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's not stuff that's going to fire you up or make you want to play for him or win. So I think he needs to improve his speaking, and they need to make some moves in the offseason, and I do think they will be back in the NFC Championship next year, hopefully.
Yeah. You look at the talent they already had. I do think after a year of tape that teams are able to put together on the Packers, I think they're going to be forced to do some stuff outside of the box. I actually kind of want to rewind here for a second. You kind of made fun of the Vikings, and rightfully so. We have it coming, but did you see what I did when that happened?
Yeah, you put your hat on.
Put on the old hat. And the reason for that is because even in the worst of times and in the best of times, I will still bleed purple. But for now, I'm going to take it off because my head's sweaty. Anyway, I actually kind of want to, I agree. I think the Packers have some stuff to do, as do the Vikings, as do a lot of NFL teams, really. And we'll kind of get into the whole offseason in another episode. But I agree. I like the way you kind of went about describing the 49ers. And I like the Blake Martinez take too, because I think that's kind of that is a little bit like it's shocker. That's what you need. That's what that's the kind of moves that make an NFL team championships. Yeah, sometimes you have to make that tough call. You have to make that guy that gets 130 tackles, he has to go just because he's awful.
He doesn't fit the scheme. He doesn't fit the scheme. They need a fast inside linebacker for a scheme like that. But yeah, he's got to go.
Mhm. I'm going to give my Super Bowl prediction here. The Chiefs are going to win this game 24-23. And that's what they're changed from what I originally said it was. I think I said 24-17 or something like that. I gave the 49ers a little bit more credit here. And the reason why I think it's going to be a little less scoring than what we think it is because, first of all, the Chiefs defense is nothing. I don't think it's a championship defense. But Patrick Mahomes is a championship quarterback. So basically, if I'm a 49ers, my whole game plan in a couple weeks from now in the Super Bowl, if I'm the 49ers, keep the ball out of his hands. Run the ball as much as you can. Maybe throw in a couple of screen passes, a little play action like we discussed. But keep the ball out of this man's hands because when he gets it in it, when he has the ball, amazing things happen. So I do think that they're going to win the time of possession battle pretty handily in the Super Bowl. But I do think Mahomes is going to bring Andy Reid his first ever Super Bowl, and Mahomes in the process, his first Super Bowl as well. I do think it is going to be a close game, obviously with my 24-23 score prediction. But I do think that the 49ers are going to lead for most of the game before Magic Mahomes is activated. And by the way, I saw a meme that if the Packers and the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl, that it was literally a buyout by State Farm because of both quarterbacks. That was the funniest thing I think I have ever seen. And I do definitely think that it's going to be a great Super Bowl. Because you got, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have, these are like polar opposite teams. Don't get me wrong now. The 49ers can throw the football when they have to, like you said. They threw the ball 8 times against the Packers, literally when they have to. But the Chiefs, they're going to sling it all over you. They don't care. They're going to throw. I bet you. I'm my prediction here. Another prediction, maybe a little bit bold. They're going to target Richard Sherman at least 10 times.
Oh, most likely. I'm assuming he'll be shadowing Tyreek wherever he goes. I know Richard Sherman doesn't move around the field. I mean, I don't know if you saw him and Darrelle Revis getting after it on Twitter, but Richard Sherman tends to stay on one side of the field. He tends to stay, if you're the offense, he tends to stay on your right side of the field. Yep. So I would not be surprised if Tyreek kind of avoids that side of the field. They motion him over to the left side of the field a lot just to keep him off of Richard Sherman. But, that's going to be huge for sure.
What about Patrick Mahomes versus Jimmy G and George Kittle versus Travis Kelce? Let's compare the two quarterbacks real quick. Obviously, two very different quarterbacks and two very different schemes. I would take Patrick Mahomes over Jimmy G any day. Like, that's not me. I'm looking at this. Obviously, you think the 49ers are going to win this. But I think we get a chance to finally get an answer to the best tight end in all of football with this game right here. I think the best tight end is going to show up. I think the best tight end is going to come out and make a game-changing play. He might be, a little bit gone for most of the game. They might either team might put in a really good defensive game plan that really shuts down their tight end. But that tight end is going to rise up when it is time to win the football game, and he's going to do that. And I think that's still George Kittle. And I know that if Ryan was on here, he would probably be having an aneurysm. But we have to be honest about this. I think it's going to be Travis Kelce. Give me something you are looking forward to. Travis Kelce, Patty Mahomes, all this. Like maybe a matchup that you're really looking forward to.
Shoot, I think I'm most excited to see how the Chiefs' offensive line handles the 49ers' defensive line. I think the biggest key for the Chiefs is protecting Mahomes, giving him 3 seconds to throw at least. Rodgers had about a second and a half average, 2 seconds when they played the 49ers. That's the key. Yeah. If the Chiefs can protect Patrick Mahomes and give him enough time to get the ball out, then I think they probably win this game pretty easily because I don't have any doubt Patrick Mahomes could probably pick apart that defense. He's probably the best quarterback in the league right now in terms of skills and ability.
Hold on. Whoa, I want to rewind it real quick.
Yeah, I know. I said it.
Didn't that hurt you?
It does hurt, but it's kind of like a passing of the torch almost. Okay. I still think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback I've ever seen, but Patrick Mahomes is playing the best quarterback, the best football right now than any other.
Lamar Jackson?
Well, I guess I wouldn't count Lamar out. I mean, I don't know. Mahomes is on another level, I think. Lamar's
Passing-wise,
up
he
there,
is.
but when it comes down to standing in the pocket and throwing the ball, extending plays and throwing the ball, I think Patty's got him beat.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's going to be the key for the Chiefs. Give Patrick Mahomes time to throw, and they need to try to develop a running game against that 49ers defense. If they can make the 49ers respect any kind of running game, then the defense is going to loosen up. That pass rush is going to loosen up, and the pass game is going to start to open up for Kansas City. So those are the keys for the Chiefs.
I'm glad you said that because I felt like Andy Reid, stereotype. Everybody thinks he just develops quarterbacks, doesn't really have a run game all that much, which I agree with to an extent. But at the same time, if you develop a quarterback that throws for 4,000 to 5,000 yards, who cares? Throw for 40 touchdowns and go to the playoffs. Like, try stopping him. That's my point. So I actually saw in the AFC Championship game, I was very, very happy to see that Andy Reid was happy to run the football. He ran, Damian Williams 15 times. If he could do that in the Super Bowl, at least run him 12 times, I think it's going to keep the 49ers on their heels a little bit because, hey, this Chiefs team, not so one-dimensional anymore. They can run it a little bit if they have to. The keys for the Chiefs is simple. Do what you've done all season long. I think looking at this, you cannot let the 49ers get the lead, number one. But you can't let them get the ball late in the game with the lead because what have they done all season long? They have run the football, okay? They have run the football. So what that tells me as a coach is if I'm the Chiefs, every opportunity that I have with the football, I need to score. Even if it's a field goal, I need to score every single time. This is the Super Bowl. Every point matters. And the Chiefs, they got to go out and do what they've done all year long, and that is sling the football around, score some touchdowns, and let Tyreek Hill run all over this defense because he's the fastest player in the league. Even though the 49ers defense is really good, I still see some questions that they have with their secondary at times. So I think that this is going to expose them a little bit. I do expect that to happen. That's why I have the Chiefs winning this game. So it's simple for the Chiefs. Do what you've done all year. In defense, just try not to get in the way. The 49ers have done it to everybody this year. The Vikings, the Packers, everybody, the Seahawks. They have ran the ball down everybody's throats and nobody can stop it. Okay. Well, you know what that does? That chews up clock. And that's going to force Patty Mahomes to have to probably have less time to be able to muster these drives and answer back with touchdowns. If you're the Chiefs, you have to answer back with touchdowns or field goals. Touchdowns wins championships. Excuse me. So you need to answer back with a touchdown every time if you're the Chiefs, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
What about keys for the 49ers? I'm pretty sure not stray away from the run game, right?
Right. Yeah, my biggest things for the 49ers was to control the line of scrimmage, offense and defense, which I think they definitely have the edge there. I think both sides of the football, offense and defense. So I don't think that'll be a problem for them. They need to put constant pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and they need to contain him. Don't let him extend the play. Don't let him roll out and give him more time to throw because it seems like every time he extends the play or he rolls out, he ends up whipping some 30 or 40-yard pass to Tyreek Hill. And it's ridiculous. So they need to contain him. Don't just make him be a pocket passer. Don't let him get outside of the pocket. And the 49ers need to prove that they can throw the football effectively the whole game, I think. I don't think throwing 8 passes is going to win you this football game. I don't think 10 passes will win you the football game or 12. I think the 49ers are going to have to end up throwing it 15 to 20 times. Because I'm sure the Chiefs are going to look good against the run early because I'm sure they're preparing for it. But I think the biggest thing the Chiefs need to try to do, if I'm Andy Reid, is I'm scripting up a first quarter that's going to score me 20-plus points. I'm scripting up a first quarter that's going to put the 49ers in a big hole because if you put them in a big hole early, you're going to force Jimmy G to throw and see what he's got. And when you force Jimmy G to throw a high volume of passes, he throws some interceptions. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Chiefs come out absolutely slinging it deep, trying to get points fast, just to put them in a hole, to see what make it a Jimmy G versus Patrick Mahomes game. Because if they can do that, Patrick Mahomes wins 10 out of 10 times. So yeah, it'll be pretty cool to see what they come out and try to do.
I'm really excited for the Super Bowl. Obviously, for the aforementioned Patriots aren't in it anymore, but it's also the fact that we're looking at this. I mean, we got a little bit of a dynamic here. We got a gunslinger versus a running football team. I'm pretty excited about this Super Bowl. You hit the nail on the head. There's no better way I could put it myself. The key for the 49ers, keep up with the Chiefs, and if you get the ball, you got to be able to run it. You got to do what you've done all year. We've talked about it, and I think that, especially what they were able to do against the Vikings and the Packers, I really think that the key is, even if the run game doesn't go according to plan, because it's football, sometimes those things just don't happen. The Vikings are a perfect example of that. If the run game does not give you the stuff that it has all season, if it does not give you the yards, the touchdowns, the production, stick with it, okay? Now, obviously, on a 3rd and 8, you're going to probably throw the football. That's just how it goes. But you have to do a healthy balance of both. In that you have to pass it, so play action as well, and you just got to be able to air it out a little bit. So I agree 100% with that. But I think that the main thing is you have to stick with the run game, because I think Mostert's going to go off. Tevin Coleman is a great back. Like you said, they got 3 good running backs, and I think it's going to be one of those things where if the 49ers show up like they have against the last couple teams they've played in the playoffs, I think they're going to steamroll, because let's face it, this Chiefs defense is not built to stop anybody. So, I mean, honestly, they got Frank Clark, who made a great play on Ryan Tannehill. I couldn't believe what I was watching. That was an absolutely amazing play. Maybe a little bit too emotional about the game, but you know what? It's a big game. You're going to the Super Bowl. I understand. So, made a great play on Ryan Tannehill. But this Chiefs defense, they were one of the worst teams when it came to stopping the run, and going up against one of the best running the football teams in the NFL, just literally coming off a 200-yard performance, probably over closer to 300 against the Packers, who, by the way, have a very respectable defense. I really think this is going to come down to the run. The 49ers have to stick with it. Don't let 2 or 3 yard gains, that might become a little bit disheartening, or make them want to maybe switch it up. No. What have you done all season long? It's not been rely on Jimmy G. Jimmy G's had a good season now. What, 25, 26 touchdown passes, only 4 or 5 picks? Because he's had this run game all season long in this defense. He hasn't had to do it. So I 100% agree. If you're the Chiefs, you force Jimmy G to beat you, because Jimmy G against Patty Mahomes, it's not a battle. Patty Mahomes is very clearly the better quarterback. But I do believe that if you are the 49ers, you have to establish the run game early and often. Now we have to answer this next question. Does Andy Reid have to win a Super Bowl to secure his job? Personally, I don't think so, because he has been, he's got this young quarterback. Defense is getting better. I believe, and Aaron Rodgers is a great example of this. At any point, if you have a franchise quarterback like Patty Mahomes or like Aaron Rodgers, I think that at any point you could go make a deep playoff run like they did this year. Even if he loses, he's still going to have I think he's still going to be in there in Kansas City for a long time. Now, will it be a little bit disheartening? Yes. Obviously, losing in the Super Bowl. Look at the Rams. They don't even make the playoffs the next year, because, I mean, it's a totally different situation, but it's still disheartening, and teams sometimes just don't make it back. But I don't think he has to win a Super Bowl to save his job. Tristan, does he have to win to save his job?
Absolutely not. I don't think so at all. I think he can go to the Super Bowl and get beat 50-0. He keeps his job. I don't think there's any way it happens, but Andy Reid's a phenomenal football coach. He's 207 and 138 as a head coach, which is the winningest head coach to not win a Super Bowl.
I don't know if I want that title.
No, he's 14 and 14 in the playoffs. I would say he's already a Hall of Fame coach. I think I think he's a Hall of Fame coach.
Wow.
I don't think if he wins a Super Bowl, it'll definitely cement him as a Hall of Fame coach, I think.
Yeah.
Just because of what he can do with offenses.
Yeah.
And it'll kind of change the narrative around, well, Andy Reid's a good coach, but he can't win a Super Bowl. So maybe those people will shut up if he wins a Super Bowl. But yeah, I think he's going to keep his job no matter what happens. He's a phenomenal coach. He's got a really young team. He took him to the AFC Championship last year, Mahomes' first year starting. Take him to the Super Bowl this year, his second year starting. Mahomes is probably about to get paid. I'm sure.
Yeah.
This off
Yeah.
season. If it's not this off season, it'll be next.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're there. He's there to stay, I think, for a long time, and I think they're building what is the new dynasty of the AFC. I'm sure. I don't really think. I mean, maybe Baltimore, Tennessee is on the rise. I think Tennessee is going to be pretty good going forward. But I don't really see anybody besides Kansas City that's going to have the sustainability. I don't think. They're just so young. They're so young, and they have such a good quarterback. It's crazy. It's like watching another Aaron Rodgers come into the league almost. And he's definitely the closest thing I've ever seen to Aaron Rodgers, that anybody's probably ever seen to Aaron Rodgers in terms of arm talent, what he can do. But yeah, nothing's gonna happen to Andy Reid. He's too good of a coach. There's no chance they would fire Andy Reid and go out and find a coach better on the market. I don't think.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't think there's any chance.
No. And the next question after that is, does Andy Reid win his first Super Bowl? Now, I already know your prediction. It's a no, and you think the 49ers win this. I think it's an emphatic yes, and here's why. There comes a point in time when in a coach's career, and I watched, the missing rings from the Minnesota Vikings, 1998, I believe it was 1969, 1987, all those jazz. There comes a point in a player's career, in a coach's career in the NFL, where they gear up. They gear up for the biggest game of their career. I think it was Joe Kapp who said this. They gear up mentally, physically to play easily the biggest game of their career and the one that people will remember them for. And in that, I think Andy Reid is done with losing. I think he's done with not having a Super Bowl. I mean, all those years with the Eagles, I just think he's ready. I think, he finally does it. And I finally think that he finally cements himself as one of the best coaches. And I think he finally wins his first Super Bowl. And I think it's about time. And you know what? I think at the end of the day, I could maybe get on board with him going into the Hall of Fame without a Super Bowl for how many times he has made the playoffs, but not this year. This year he wins the Super Bowl. I'm calling it right now. I think that he has done a lot of good things in this league, and a lot of revolutionizing everything offensively. Patty Mahomes, Donovan McNabb, everybody, Michael Vick, all of it. Okay, this man deserves to be. He deserves his first Super Bowl. And I feel for him because that elusive, it's been getting away from him for too long. And you know what? I think he's finally ready. So I'm really ecstatic for him. And it's going to be a good game. I can't wait. I'm beyond excited. Another kind of a little bit of a headline here, and I would like to get your take on this first. Katie Sowers is about to be the first female and openly gay coach to be in the Super Bowl. Wow. I mean, we're going to see history.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm not sure a lot of people even knew about Katie Sowers. I mean, me personally, I heard something about her earlier in the season, but I kind of completely forgot she was the coach for the 49ers until I saw the headline. She's going to be the first female openly gay coach to coach in the Super Bowl. I was like, wow, I kind of forgot she was even there. That's incredible. It's definitely going to shoot down a lot of narratives or barriers around female coaches for sure, and I think it's going to open a lot of doors for female coaches too. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more. It's probably going to start with reffing. I know there's already one or two female refs in the NFL, but I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of those. And I really hope you start to see more female coaches as well. It'd be super cool if in our lifetime we get to see a female head coach in the NFL. I don't really see that happening in the near future just because of the way it is right now, but I think this is a good starting point. It'd be super cool if Katie Sowers got a head coaching job after this year. I'd be all for it. But yeah, it's awesome. It's definitely something different, something that's been coming for a long time, and it's good to see it finally happening.
I have to full-heartedly agree with you here because I believe that breaking down barriers is never something that's easy. Martin Luther King did it, and a lot of other great men and women. I think this is a big moment that it's not getting hyped up enough. And you hit the nail on the head. This leads to the first female head coach to go to a franchise. I don't know if it happens this year. I don't know if it happens the year after that, but I believe and hope that it does happen because it is about breaking down barriers. It is about about being able to say that women can do stuff too. So I'm actually really excited for this because I believe that at a certain point in life, sometimes people have to stand up. They have to do the unthinkable, the bold, and they have to go out and do it. And I think that I'm so ecstatic that she's doing this, and that it's going to happen. I think it's long overdue. And the thing with the whole thing is, it's a great moment, and I'm happy to be a part of. Like, I'm happy to be able to witness it. And I do really hope that we see the very first female NFL head coach sometime soon. I don't know if it will happen. It's not my call, but I do hope we see it sometime. I think it'll be really great to see.
Yeah. Speaking of one thing, I don't know if I can't remember the name or the team or anything really about this. I think there was a female by the name of Rachel who wanted to apply for an MLB job, coaching job. She wanted to apply to be a pitching coach, I think. And she filled out application. This just happened. I just saw this like a week ago, but she filled out all of her applications as Ray instead of Rachel. Mm-hmm. So everybody looking at the applications thought she was a male, so they'd interview her. And she got an interview, and she ended up getting the job.
Really?
So I thought that was, I don't know. I can't 100% confirm it, but that's what the little article I read said, but I think it's super cool, and I really hope we start to see a lot more female coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says it right here. Rachel Balkovic. I don't know. They had wow, I don't know. The first female full-time head coach. Wow, that's cool. That's what it's about right here. Like, this is what we just said. The Yankees are trying to make history with the addition of Rachel Balkovich, who will become the one of the first female full-time hitting coaches hired by. You're right, hitting coach. Excuse me. That's awesome. Exactly. This is what it's about. This is what this stuff like this is meant to do. We're breaking barriers here now. Again, as far as head coaching, all that jazz. And I don't know personally if we'll ever see a head coach, baseball coach that's a woman. I don't know that because baseball obviously is the male version of softball. It's just how it is, and I think football is a man's sport. I was talking to this with my beautiful girlfriend Alyssa last night. Football is a man's sport, but that doesn't mean that women can't have the equal opportunity to coach it. I don't know again who that will be, but at the same time, you got to be excited for it, man. It's history. We're a part of it. We're in it, and it's best to celebrate it. Moving on, and I got this news today. Gary Kubiak will be the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. My first reaction was, it was coming. I knew it. Because Mike Zimmer said in his exit press conference that he wants continuity and he doesn't want his offense to be able to kind of go out and have to learn new things. It had better work, because I am sick of bringing in all Kevin Stefanski. I said it on the air, said it out last week. He should have gotten the job, or a couple weeks ago, should have gotten the job. The Browns last year. I know he wasn't proven, but he should have gotten it over Freddie Kitchens now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the Vikings, I'm glad that they're doing this continuity thing. I think it's going to help Kirk Cousins in his last year. Listen, this is it. This is make or break. I know they probably might come out with a contract extension for Mike Zimmer. I see that happening, especially making it to the divisional round and shocking the world after beating the Saints. I see that happening. But Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't get comfortable. And I love Kirk Cousins. He's a Christian. He's a great man. But the key is here, we cannot let him get comfortable. And that's just business. That's how this thing goes. We draft a quarterback. I say in the top 3 rounds, we draft a quarterback that is a hot shot. I'm talking this guy. I mean, Joe Burrow. I'm not saying we trade the house for the first overall pick, but I might consider it, because I don't want to get this guy too pumped up to go. Now, I know that I sound a little blasphemous because I'm speaking fully out of emotion and not logic here. So let me kind of retract this and let me kind of go back to my brain and actually think about this. The Vikings aren't going to draft a quarterback in the top 3 rounds, because I believe that this is it. This is Kirk Cousins is attached to Mike Zimmer. He's attached to Rick Spielman, who gave him the contract that was $28 million per year, fully guaranteed. They are whatever it was. This is it, boy. This is it. There is no more, okay, well, we got him an offensive line. Oh, we got him an. This is the last year of your contract, dude. The Vikings defense needs some help. There's a lot of other areas that the Vikings need to get help on. They can't afford to go out and get a draft a quarterback or trade for a quarterback or whatever it is. This is it, dude. I hope you ate your Wheaties the entire season because this is it. And I think Gary Kubiak, the addition of him as the Vikings offensive coordinator, gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl next year. I agree with this move because, again, Mike Zimmer wanted continuity. Well, he got it. Delvin Cook is going to come back next year. There's a heap of other things that the Vikings need to do, and we'll get into that in another episode. But at the end of the day, the Vikings got their coach, they got their offensive coordinator, and I think this is a great move for the organization. It's going to put, like I said, it's going to put them all in the best possible position to be successful. That's what you do as a coach. What was your reaction, by the way?
Yeah, I think you said it best. I think staying within the organization and hiring Kubiak was probably the best move they could have made. If they want to keep what they already have built and just build on what they have and improve what they have rather than taking a whole new system, trying to get everybody to learn it while he's in his contract year, the quarterback. Yep. That wouldn't be a very smart move, in my opinion, because if that probably happened, I don't think they'd be very good next year, learning a whole new offense.
Nope.
But you never know. But, yeah, definitely Kubiak was the smartest choice. Somebody the Vikings, the guys already know. Somebody who's been around, he knows what the deal is. I think he was, what was he? He was an offensive advisor this last year or something?
I believe so, yep.
Yeah, something like that. And then doesn't his son coach for the Vikings too?
Yes. I believe he's the quarterback's coach or something like that, yes. Clint Kubiak, yes.
Yeah, but Gary's definitely got his work cut out for him. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Stephon Diggs this offseason. I don't really know. I honestly think it's 50-50 if he goes or stays. I don't know. Do you know if he's an unrestricted free agent?
No, they just re-signed him like a year or two ago to a 5-year deal. So he's in Minnesota.
He's under contract.
He's not a free agent. He's not a free agent.
Okay, so what's all the business about him leaving? Maybe.
He wanted to be traded. I mean, there was that whole jazz after I think it was after the Bears game. You know, he kind of didn't really deny it, didn't really accept it, all that jazz. I don't think he's going anywhere because I mean he's a good wide receiver. He just had 1,000 yards, even though he didn't catch. I think there were a ton of more receivers that caught more passes than him, and he had a great season, even though he missed, I believe, 1 or 2 games. I don't think he's going anywhere, and the reason I say I hope he's not because he's a good wide receiver. He's a field stretching wide receiver. And I think if the Vikings get some help on the offensive line, then maybe we can help the man out a little bit. However, I do think in order to help out your offensive line, you need to help out with coaching. And, the Vikings, again, that's where the continuity thing comes in. I think it's huge. So Stephon Diggs, hopefully not going anywhere. You were right, we were right. Clint Kubiak is the Vikings quarterback's coach. For me, though, the biggest question marks are on defense for this team. They just fired mutually parted ways with Jerry Gray and Edwards, who was the defensive coordinator. I was shocked to hear that. Like, I was kind of like, whoa. Like, usually when you have you make the divisional round, maybe, some things happen, but I didn't expect this. I think looking at this, I think it lets everybody know to not get comfortable, especially on the defensive side of the football, because, still a top 15 defense. They weren't as good as they were in years past, even though they played much better towards the end of the playoffs, not against the 49ers, because let's face it, the 49ers were making everybody look like fools. So I do believe that this is going to make them refocus defensively. This is going to make them say, okay, nobody's safe. Jerry Gray and Edwards were there for 7 years, just as long as Mike Zimmer was there. This is a way of Mike Zimmer clearing the slate, giving them the proverbial shot in the arm and saying, okay, defensively, we're going to do some different things. And I mean, the godfather of, or excuse me, the creator of the double A-gap blitz, I think he's going to come out with some new defensive stuff, and I'm very excited for that next year. And hopefully we'll see some good things happen.
Yeah. One thing I think Minnesota should do, I try to keep my insider advice to myself when I'm giving it to division rivals, but I think besides offensive line, they should spend a high pick on a slot receiver, 2nd round, 3rd round,
really?
Maybe. I think the way I look at that offense, if they had like a really good slot receiver, I think their offense would be great. Like, I think it would be a really good offense. I mean, they have Diggs and Thielen on the outsides. But if you could get a really good guy on the inside and have Dalvin Cook, like it just opens up a whole new world of possibilities of what you can do in the middle of the field.
Mhm.
Because when they throw to Thielen and Diggs, it's generally it's outside the hashes. It's on the right and left side of the field.
Yep.
I don't know Treadwell. He's probably going to be there again. I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's an X receiver though. He's not an inside slot receiver. I don't know who else. I don't even know who else they have, honestly.
Yeah,
but I think
I'd like to answer that, kind of rebuttal that a little bit. The Vikings actually have Chad Beebe, who's actually an undrafted free agent. Actually, I don't think he's a free agent, excuse me, but he was undrafted, I think, at the University of Northern Iowa or something like that. I can't quite remember the college, but Chad Beebe, in his pride and glory, he actually had one of the biggest plays against the Packers in like week 2. He had like a 65-yard catch.
Yeah.
And after that, he got injured. I'm not exactly sure. Northern Illinois University, had a 61-yard catch against the Packers. He actually is. I think he's going to take over as their slot guy. He's like 5'9", 160, not huge, but he can fly. So looking at this, I do expect him. I expect him to make a full recovery and be back. Also, the Vikings have Olabisi Johnson. He was a guy, 7th-round draft pick out of Colorado, and he played his heart out. I think there was times when I thought that Olabisi Johnson might be one of the better route runners on the Vikings squad, not including Thielen and Diggs. Those guys are on their whole other level. I thought there was Thielen, Diggs, and then Olabisi Johnson in terms of route running over Treadwell and all that jazz. So I'm thinking here, Chad Beebe is going to have to step up this year. No more injured, no more draft, free agent draft. Before the season started, I was a guy that said Chad Beebe was going to have a big year. Well, he had 2 catches for 70 yards. Not awful, but it's also the fact that he was, injured. So I'm hoping that he can come back, get fully healthy. But I can see why you would say that. I think that would help out their offense, yes. But unfortunately, the Vikings have some holes on the interior. More specifically, the left side of the offensive line that I think they're either A, going to draft a left tackle number 1 in the first round, or B, they're going to draft a corner because they need some help in that area. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen here. They're going to have to restructure a lot of things because apparently the salary cap is catching up with them, and they've got a lot of stuff to figure out. They have more questions than answers to me right now because of all the stuff going on. So I think it's actually going to be a very interesting offseason, and I am extremely excited for everything that will come with it. Eli Manning. I don't know if I want to talk about this, but Eli Manning has retired.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And there's some people that might think I'm a little nuts. That's okay. I don't mind being nuts. But I do think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And it's not because of all the passing records. He doesn't have really any. Like, he had touchdowns and interception ratio. It's almost 1-to-1. Like, he wasn't great. It was what he did against the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl that, to me, exemplifies what a Hall of Famer is. You're a Hall of Famer. Obviously, you're one of the best at your position. I don't think Eli Manning was truly ever, one of the best. I think he was a really good quarterback. He was obviously a franchise quarterback, but he was never truly one of the best. He was never better than than Peyton, obviously. But I think he was in the top 10 easily, maybe the top 5. But I even at his best, I do think that he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. 2 Super Bowl rings. Hard to argue with the man. It's hard to argue with a champion, and that is exactly what Eli Manning is. I'm extremely excited for him to be able to retire, and the Giants have their quarterback in Daniel Jones. They can start building. I think it's just going to be a really good move for the organization. I think he's coming out with a press conference on Friday. That's got to be a great thing to see. You're seeing one of the game's better quarterbacks leaving the league, and a guy that you look at both times. I believe he won the Super Bowl. The first year he was like a wild card, and they won it all. Like, that's not supposed to happen. You go beat the Patriots, who were undefeated. I mean, that was not supposed to happen. But David Tyree and the helmet catch, amazing things. Give me a reaction. Seeing a Manning retire. I'm assuming you weren't shocked.
No, I wasn't surprised. I don't think anybody was too surprised. I figured he would have announced it right away after the season was over. So there's been kind of some speculation about it. But, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I do think he's a Hall of Famer, first ballot, just because when he won the Super Bowls in those years where he was winning, he was super clutch. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the more clutch quarterbacks that played in his time. Because I remember they played one of the years they won the Super Bowl. They played Green Bay in the playoffs, and the dude was on fire, and he was unbelievable. But yeah, I do think 2 rings speaks for itself. I don't think there's any quarterbacks in history that have 2 Super Bowl rings and are not in the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
So I could be wrong, but I do think he's a Hall of Famer. It's going to be a rough next few years. The next 5 years will be kind of rough, seeing a generation of quarterbacks leave. I would assume Tom's probably next.
Yep.
And then Drew.
Yep.
And then I think Aaron's going to be the last one to go. I
think Philip before Aaron. Philip before Aaron. Even if he gets resigned. If he gets resigned.
I don't consider Philip a great. But
fair enough.
He's good. He's definitely a good quarterback. It'll probably be Tom. Probably Philip, and then Drew Brees and Rodgers. Rodgers will probably go another 7-8 years. I think he wants to play till he's 45. I don't think he does. I think he plays till he's 42, 43. But yeah, it's gonna be rough.
As like a starting quarterback.
As a starting quarterback, it's gonna be rough for sure to see him leave whenever he decides to leave, because we're not gonna hit the jackpot 3 times in a row. I know that. We got Favre and Rodgers. Whatever's next is gonna be rough, and I think the Packers are gonna go into a slump as soon as A-Rod's gone. So it's gonna be rough for sure. But yeah, Eli Manning, definitely Hall of Famer. I'd vote for him.
Yeah, he's earned it. I mean, you can't, obviously you can argue stats; those are analytical, but you can't argue with the 2 rings. Obviously, his defense stepped up for him. All that jazz. It doesn't matter. The man is a Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champion. Looking at it though, if Aaron Rodgers leaves, as a Vikings fan, I genuinely will be sorry. Like I will be a little sad. You know, a tear might come. Not really. Just kidding. It's not going to come. It's going to be. I'm going to be a little happy because we don't got to deal with him for the next 10 years, blowing past us and going to the playoffs and winning Super Bowls. Like I'm just kidding. All jokes aside, obviously, Tristan, I told you it from day one. The man was the most talented quarterback. Is the most talented quarterback to have ever played. And I think he's got 3 or 4 more years left. Now, as to how many more effective years he can do it with, only throwing 2 interceptions, 3 interceptions per year. I don't know. That's a question that I think, frankly, is a little hard to answer and a little bit loaded, if you ask me. I think he's got 4 years tops, 2 years of being a slightly above average quarterback. I think those last 2 years is going to be spent developing whoever is next. And I think that the Packers, they've shown a history of developing quarterbacks. They're going to do it again, Tristan. You got to have faith, man. You got to be able to go there with a little bit of.
I think we can develop a quarterback who's good. But I don't think it's going to be another A-Rod or another Brett Favre. No. But, I hope it's somebody who can at least win a ball game. But, it's going to be rough. I'm either going to be staying faithful or looking for a new team. Might go to Kansas City, hop on the Mahomes wagon. But, no, I'll be a Packers fan forever. Yeah. But, it's definitely going to be rough. I do think he's got a lot more than 4 years left, though, and he thinks so as well. I think he's 36 now. He'll be 37 next December, I believe. See, I even know his damn birthday. Look at me. But I think he'll play into his early 40s for sure. Wow. But like you said about developing a quarterback, I think maybe not next year or the year after, they need to draft a quarterback high, not only to prepare him, but to maybe up the urgency for Aaron Rodgers, because that's one thing he lacks. He's super complacent in his job. He doesn't play like he's going to lose his job, which kind of bothers me because when he makes a mistake, it's just like, whatever, because they're not benching me. I'm Aaron Rodgers. Like, there's nobody, my backup, Tim Boyle's not going to replace me. I know that. I'm fine. So that's like stealing at a job and then knowing you're not going to get fired because you're the only one who works there. But
okay, fair enough.
I think they should certainly draft a quarterback in the next couple of years. Not even if it's not to develop him to replace Aaron Rodgers, but just to kind of let him know, like, you need to like start playing better because we need to win Super Bowls with you.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he has 1, maybe 2 more in him. I do think though at some point you have to raise the question. I actually raised this last week with Shay. You have to ask yourselves, if you have a guy in Aaron Jones who rushes for 1,200 yards and has, 16, 17 touchdowns during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to ask yourself, okay, with Aaron Rodgers, obviously he's a different quarterback in the playoffs. He showed it against the 49ers in the second half now that they were coming back. They were starting to do some things now. And I think you got to get Rodgers a more reliable number 2 wide receiver. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, I've seen some flashes, but I mean, other than Devontae Adams, there's like Jake Coomer. Who is going to step up for this guy? You got to get him a number 2 wide receiver because I mean, it's amazing that he's still only throwing 4 interceptions with the wide receiver room that he has right now. No, not bashing them, but it's just the fact you got to give this guy some help if you want him to go anywhere. So add in the fact that the Packers now have Aaron Jones, who now looks like a top 5, possibly a top 3 running back in the entire NFL. I do believe that the pressure is now off Rodgers, and I think with that comes. Do we maybe see a scheme change where they're more run first so that the way, they can take the pressure off Rodgers, maybe run some more play action stuff? Or the question, or the flip side of that, do they stand in the pocket and let him sling it? I think you see a little bit of both over the next couple of years. Even though, again, I do raise the question, I just think that if I'm a coach, I want to put my team in the best possible position. And I believe that's giving the ball to Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers. So at the end of the day, as a Packers fan, can you tell me, do you think they go away a little bit from slinging it so much?
I mean, in a way they did this year.
Mm-hmm.
They were definitely run first this year, most of this year, I think, except for a couple games. I mean, the Raiders game, it was a gunslinging show, but
it was the Raiders.
I think this next year they need to go back to a hurry up spread offense. That's what Aaron Rodgers runs the best. It's a throw it 30, 40 times a game offense. And I know he's still got a couple more good years where he can do it, and I think they need to use it to their advantage. I mean, Aaron Jones is good, but just think, if they're going to throw it, they need to throw it more than they threw it this year, because if you're only going to throw it a few times a drive, you can't expect Rodgers to be pinpoint every single one of his passes because he's probably cold. You got to let him just sling it around all the time like he's used to. And, yeah, him and LaFleur both said the same thing at their exit interviews or whatever, their season-ending conferences. They said that next year they need to get back to a up-tempo, and they need to spread the offense more. And I think round 1, round 2 at the latest, we need to draft a wide receiver. This wide receiver class is stacked. It would be a shame to miss out on a good receiver this year. And we've got the 30th pick in the draft. I want them to trade up to between 10 to 20 somewhere just to make sure they get one of those top 3, 4 wide receivers because they need it. I mean, besides Devontae Adams, which was a 7th round draft pick or a 6th, or besides him, everybody's undrafted. They've got, I don't know where the hell Kumaro came from. I think he came from like a Whitewater, like a Division III school.
Yeah. He came from NAIA, which is crazy.
Yeah, and then Alan Lazard, he's kind of stepped up as the number 2 wide receiver. Pretty sure he wasn't drafted either.
Yeah.
Marquez was drafted, but everybody thought he was going to be the number 2 receiver. He ended up being the number 4 receiver by the end of the year, not even playing that much. The wide receiver room is an absolute mess. He's got nothing to work with. Besides throwing it to Adams and handing it to Aaron Jones, there's nothing there. Having Jimmy Graham on the field is basically
almost wasteful. I feel like
wasteful. It's a big body. He's not a very good blocker. You can't catch the damn ball. And when he does catch it, he tackles himself. Like, he'll catch the ball, he'll run for a good 5 yards, and then he stumbles and falls almost every time. If he catches the ball. The rare occasion he catches the football. But they need to get rid of him. I mean, he's the highest paid tight end in the NFL, believe it or not. Right. I think he's sitting at $11 million a year-ish. But, I mean, for God's sake, we have Jay Sternberger, who's fast as a wide receiver. I think he's going to be a very good tight end. I'd pick him up in fantasy next year. Who else we have? Robert Tonyan, decent tight end. Mercedes Lewis was a decent tight end. So they need to move on from Jimmy Graham, draft a wide receiver, and then go after defense. Go after a middle linebacker in free agency, whatever they need to do. But, they need to build up the wide receiver room because it's getting old having nobody to throw to besides Adams.
Yep. I think Vikings have a lot of similarities with the Packers in some ways, and it's kind of scary. Personally, I hope it doesn't when we kind of get into the off-season things, I hope we can kind of come back at this and talk about restructuring, talk about hopeful players that we want to see them draft and all that jazz. But yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities between the Vikings and Packers, and at the end of the day, there's got to be a little bit of almost an urgency between the two teams because both teams are in the playoffs, both teams are in the same division. And it's going to be a battle between Minnesota and Green Bay next year, even though Green Bay won it twice this year. But at the same time, the Vikings were a game away from going to see the Packers again in Lambeau. So I'm excited for next year. I think it's going to be really fun. One more thing before we get out of here. I don't know if you saw it. Zion Williamson absolutely mesmerized people in his NBA debut. And I think that this also wasn't originally supposed to be really talked about, but it's hard not to talk about a guy that went 4 for 4 from beyond the 3-point line and scored 22 points in 18 minutes, 17 of which came in the fourth quarter. And before he came out, they had I believe they had a leader as a one possession game. They were taking it to him. When he was obviously catching fire. Your reaction when seeing Mr. Williamson tear it up?
I only watched a little bit of the highlights, but it's pretty wild that such a big dude can shoot so well. Yeah. That's the only thing that really stood out to me. His movements aren't super fast, but the way he moves makes people bite hard. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is about it. I don't think anybody expects him to shoot the three, but he shoots the three and he gets them. But yeah, it was impressive. And then just throwing it up towards the hoop, letting him go tip it in. It's just it almost looks effortless. I'm worried about his longevity. I think everybody probably should be, because I hate to say it and I hate to be like this, but I think he's probably going to be a player who's pretty injury prone most of his career. I just don't see him not. I mean, the dude's his knees are already shot almost. I mean, he's got bad knees already. But I really hope he doesn't get hurt. I mean, he looked phenomenal last night when he started catching fire. So I hope this is the next coming of LeBron James.
I do too, and I think it's something that I think people are almost going to take for granted. They're going to just say, "Oh, one game." Even if he, God forbid, if he goes out after a couple seasons and washes out, I hope that doesn't happen. Great player. I think that you're going to see a guy, or you saw, a guy last night that, and maybe I'm misseeing this, but when I watched the highlights. He's not his explosive, destroying self. Like, he is not the way he was in Duke. In Duke, he literally almost broke the rim, probably at least a handful of times when he played for Duke. So I'm looking at this. What's that? I
think he'll get there.
Yeah, I think he's coming back from obviously a tough knee injury before the season. I hope that as long, like you said, I hope he stays it for the long run. I hope his body holds up. I do think it will for at least the next 5 years, and I really hope that he continues to develop that outside shot, because if your body goes, you still need to be able to provide something shooting-wise in the NBA. Yeah. If you want to stay in the NBA, you got to be able to put up the ball. You got to be able to put it in, and right. I think he does a great job of doing that at times. Obviously, only one game to go off of. Does a fantastic job of doing it so far. So I think you're going to see a guy that has to develop his game a little bit more. And then once that explosiveness comes back, it's over. I mean, if he can stay healthy and if he can find that explosiveness again, or when he can find that explosiveness again, it's now almost not fair. Like, I'm looking at this kid is absolutely amazing. He is the next he has a chance to be the next coming of LeBron James. And I think it's something I'm excited to see. Like, when I only thought we'd ever see one LeBron James, but apparently we might have two. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's time to get out of here. It's pretty late, so now we all got to get some rest. But once again, Tristan, you know what it is, dude.
Yeah, it was fun. Speaking of the NBA, just one little last thing here.
Go ahead.
My Warriors looking like they're going to get the number 1 pick in the draft this year. It's all part of the plan. See, you lose Kevin Durant, tank for the number 1 pick. Go ahead and snag LaMelo out of the draft. Got Steph back next year. You got Clay. You got a school of shooters. You got D'Lo.
Oh no!
I think the Warriors are going to be pretty sick next year.
But I hope that things turn around for them, and they obviously will when Steph and Clay come back. But I mean, I don't think Warriors fans even saw this coming. Like, I really don't think. And like, obviously, everybody knew Clay was out. But to see Steph go down too, it's almost like you're a Vikings fan. The worst happened. Like in a way, you're a Vikings fan. But it's for a separate team. Like it's the same team but a different uniform. If that makes sense. So I feel for you a little bit because I know what it's like. But yeah, I next year I don't know. We're gonna have to see because I think you're gonna get two of the best players in the NBA back, and you're gonna see probably a little bit more power shift towards them. I don't know. I think I'm so sick. They need to bring somebody big on the inside.
A number one draft pick. Just think, the Golden State Warriors getting the first pick in the draft.
Yeah, literally a year after being in, after playing nearly for a title. Like it's crazy. So it's going to be crazy. Cone, let's just see that. Like just a total 180. I don't know. But again, that's what injuries bring. That's just part of the game. In all sports. So once again, thanks everybody for joining us. Colton and Tristan coming at you. Once again, be sure to drop a like, drop a comment, and to subscribe. Follow us on all social media platforms. And man, get your sports from here. Thanks everybody for joining us.